This is Daniel Tabar. I am working on Cortex Command 3D in Slovakia with some of the team from MONTAGE. Here's one of them. Max is here. Hey. You might have seen him in some other videos. Actually, he's put out some other tutorial videos and stuff before. But here we are experimenting with some digging. Cortex Command has a very core mechanic of digging tunnels in the ground. And if you have, we killed ourselves. If you have played the prototype game kind of test that we have currently live and that we announced yesterday and is in the app stores now. If you haven't yet, just go to the MONTAGE app in the app store and try it out. It's there. You can do this digging with like perfect spheres, and they're magically appearing in front of you, making a tunnel, and you even have objects appear that you discover when you're digging. This is a good test, interesting test, but in Cortex Command you're actually using a kind of a sandblasting like tool that shoots out a bunch of particles very fast, and it creates a tunnel based on the particles hitting actual pixels in the 2D space and dislodging them, and then you can kind of blast more away and so on. How do we solve this in 3D here? So we had some experiments already. I'm going to walk you through them today, where we create a shape and we can go into this edit mode. Let me move some things around so we can show you this. Oh, this is hopefully something I can move. No, I cannot move. Oh, I can. Okay, good. And cylinder. So we thought of, there's different ways you can think of. There's like a very basic digging motion or digging tool, like not unlike Minecraft actually, right? Where in Minecraft you have some basic first digging tool. With your hand. Can you dig in your hand in Minecraft? Yeah. Okay, you can do that too, and it's very inefficient, but it does get the job done if you have some patience. But here, if we make a kind of a shape that will be the negative shape that you're removing from something, I can now add this, right? And I made kind of a cheese wheel, and I will then also turn a box shape and remove like half of it, so we get this half arc. It's like a half moon shape, and I delete some of this. I just remove, I guess it's cut, it's gonna be removed, yeah, like that. So we've created this shape, and we also want to make it not so perfectly smooth like this, so we're gonna mess it up a little bit. We can do that by doing some remove and these lines. We experimented with this before, so we have some idea of like what actually works here. Yeah, like that. Ideally, I'd like these lines to be vertical and not horizontal, but here we are. Oh, they're actually twisting around too. We're making an uneven shape here, and it'll be more clear why in a minute here, because when we're using this purple half moon shape to remove from the wall or ground that we're digging in front of or into, we want it to be not perfectly. Ooh, that's going to cause some issues. Let me try to smooth some of this out. So these tools and the UI here is all very placeholder, at least the UI, and the tools are going to be refined a lot. But I can increase the size of this and smooth this out. So it's smoother, but it's also like an uneven shape. And also note that I'm doing this in a browser that has a million other tabs, so the performance is hardly great. We're just doing some testing here. Okay, so we have something that is somewhat bumpy, somewhat will look like something when I'm digging, it'll have this effect. Okay, so now I can go back into and I will walk up to this and actually pick it up. Okay.
It's not an object.
Oh, it's not an object yet. I need to actually make it into an object. So this is part of the world now. Voxel data, and it's sometimes hard to actually see the difference between the two. Let me do this again. So we'll have a box that will envelop this. I'll select it all. And you see I've made this deliberately kind of the height of my character, which is standing next to it now. And the character is a temporary placeholder avatar, of course, that will have more kind of deliberate art. So now we can got this. Actually, I'll copy it because maybe we'll want to do more with this. So I've actually created a separate object now, and I can pick that up. Yep, I move up to it, pick that up, and we get Lua error, which is fine. We can click that away. And I'm now holding this object very close to my face, and it's very in my way. But you can see how I'm like, this could be a shape. Maybe if I pick it down, can I pick it up or drop it and move it down a little bit? Maybe. So, yeah. So we'll try that. Move it down a little bit, so it's almost like in the ground, but not quite. So like that. So when I pick it up again, it'll be maybe more closely kind of matching where. Okay, so maybe now. And now, well, it seems like it's picking it up. It's centering it over my head, it seems, actually. That's fine. So we'll select it. We'll do some fancy pants trick here, making it invisible, actually. And now, click this away. Cool. So now, it doesn't look like I have something in my hands, but when I dig, you see how it's actually scraping away. It kind of looks like it's actually deleting from whatever I'm standing in front of, right? So if we add an arm animation to this, and I shouldn't be digging into the light here because there's a shader issue that's reflecting weirdly. So we're adding shadows quite soon and so on, but let's do it in here. And I killed myself somehow, or what happened there? I'm not sure. No, I still have it. Good. So now you might understand why we had an uneven shape. We want to have an uneven shape so it feels like we're actually digging into this wall, not with a perfect cylindrical smooth thing. And also, yeah, so there's an uneven shape, and probably we should like be replacing the shape with a few different ones each time, each stroke, so it doesn't have this kind of repetitive nature to it. And then if I have stuff up here, I can still like clean this up. So imagine each time I'm clicking now, it'll be an arm swinging animation. This needs to work like on a phone, so very simple like taps for the digging motion. And maybe it would be a wider scoop as well, but this is again like the most basic thing. Like you have nothing in your hands. You are, as a robot, remote control robot, desperately digging a shelter for yourself, or trying to like, yeah, build a little cavern so you're not completely exposed. Oh, we're gonna hit the other tunnel now. So we've been doing some experiments before, of course, but yeah, now we're actually gonna link up with another tunnel. So I can like keep swiping here, and again, of course, we don't see the swipe. There's no animation there, but this is something we would add. So we're all prototyping now, and I've cleaned up this tunnel, and also the green. You know, like, does that make sense? No, probably not. So. But yeah, we've dug into this other larger tunnel that we dug before in a very similar way. And we've also been shooting in here, and we've been trying to like, can we reinforce this with blocks of kind of brick? And yes, but then the tunnel became tighter and more claustrophobic, and it looks very noisy in general. So we are going to have to experiment with this quite a bit. But you see how like I'm able to dig these interesting looking tunnels, and now there's another problem with the shape, like not actually angling downward for this sweep, but I can still kind of dig into here. And the way that, oh, now I fell through the ground. That's a clearly a bug, but we ignore that. We are fixing these kind of edge cases and issues with that causes the falling through. And I died there again, or that was a reset. But you see, this is another example. Like, this is what before we had the shape kind of messed up, and it looks a little weird. Like, it looks too mechanical. Like, it's yeah, it just looks not right. But this tunnel is much more interesting, I think. This is where it starts looking like Minecraft tunnel, if it was high resolution, right? Like, we're digging into the ground in a natural way. And lighting is going to make a huge difference here, of course. Like, we don't have lighting that would make it darker in the tunnel, and then you could have some light sources in there that would light things up. Or if you have a gun and you shoot the gun, you know, and that lights up the tunnel, that's going to look very interesting, I think, too. Yeah, this is a short kind of experiment we did today on digging. Clearly, there's a lot more work to be done, but it's very tantalizing, like being able to build these tunnels, and the feeling of doing it has to hit some kind of, this is again the most basic digging motion or action that you always have available to you. It's kind of the FPS game where you have the infinite ammo pistol. It's like something you can always fall back on, but in our case it's like the digging tool. Nice, now I've built a tunnel linking up here. So you can see how it becomes an interesting complex to build here, and I made this other exit here, and you can imagine how you would quickly have an interesting, yeah, like a rat's maze or ant colony, and we can actually, in third-person view, see it all. If we go into the ground, we can actually see, oh, even the shots. That's awesome, actually. That's pretty neat. So we were shooting down the tunnel before, and the bullet holes were digging into the far wall. But you can imagine there's a corpse here, and those balls we shot before. But in this view, you have this like X-ray vision, and in Cortex Command, of course, you're switching between RTS kind of play mode and the FPS, where you're directly controlling one of these characters, and you'd be like, I want to switch to that guy. I would click on him, and I'd be then running around in FPS, and I can then come out in this kind of command God view and see the battlefield. Like, see how we made a tunnel in here that did not link up, but it was actually very close. Do you see how close we were? That's interesting. Yeah, this volumetric aspect of our virtual matter tech is super interesting and like gameplay wise. So we've just by testing actually made an interesting little maze in here, and you can imagine like in World War I this was happening, like the trenches, and the Germans and the French were like digging crazy tunnels under the trenches, under the mountains, and sometimes they were very close to each other, and they had to like listen to the ground of hearing like the other team, so to speak, dig. So anyway, going back to, are we still recording? That's a good question, right? Did I lose my face in here? Yeah, we're still recording. 12 minutes in. I don't know where my face went, so that's, I don't think you actually need it. Some other thoughts on the things we were talking about today. We talked a lot about, we have 3 guys here on site. There's more visiting us from the team, but it's interesting conversations around the kind of second-to-second experience of Cortex Command when you connect. Like, it'll actually start probably from this kind of above, and it's going to be a much larger play space, of course. But you will then pick where you want your brain bot to land with like some kind of drop crate. You will pick from here, and then it'll actually kind of come down here and show you coming down through the atmosphere with some cool particles and a streak of, smoke, and it go boom where you clicked and landed, and it'll be like a crater essentially with a crate in it, and then you'll jump out of there as a robot with a brain in a jar and you're going to be very exposed, so you immediately get put into first-person view there and can start digging like one of these tunnels to create some shelter, and actually probably start even digging for gold. You might have some gold actually landing already, so you can order some more troops down to protect you, and so you'll create a shelter, maybe not very unlike something like this, a tunnel down that isn't reinforced yet, and you can be in here with your brain bot while you have some remote control bodies, Cortex Command style, again, guarding the entrances. And eventually you're going to want to reinforce the walls so they're not so easy for anyone else to just like penetrate like we did here and threaten you. And so this is quite interesting. I hope this recording is actually recording the right screen. It's like the whole screen, I hope. Otherwise we're going to be having a very boring recording of some tab. Anyway, in that case we should wrap up. This is the first day of us working together. We on site, on this. we're coming up with like the basic stuff. We're going to have a document also that I'll probably publish actually of the Cortex Command 3D design doc essentially, and be happy to invite comments on that from anyone. I don't see why not. And even this Loom video that you're watching right now, you can comment on it wherever you want, and in the video, I mean. And we'd be happy to hear your thoughts and ideas. There's this would be like the basic digging kind of action that's built into the characters, but having more advanced digging tools later that are more efficient would be much better, of course, in terms of building a bunker. You could even have building like bunker pieces that you're placing, and they have like a negative space volume that automatically creates the tunnel and the walls at the same time. It's also Cortex Command style. And they could be kind of blueprints that build over time after you place them. So these are some ideas we have for building very interesting bunker complexes and so on to protect your brain and potentially your gold. We're thinking about whether the gold should be automatically added to your global tally of your team or your player, or if it's something you actually physically have to carry back to a secure vault, or maybe you have to do that and also ship it off to orbit to actually get access to it as funds to buy more stuff. We had experiments in that in the Cortex Command, the original, where I built all those mechanics where you not only have to dig the gold from the ground, and the gold would look like this. Let's say paint, add material gold, of course, and then like we'll make it rough. So imagine this is very nice looking gold. It's a little big maybe. Rotate, orbit, there it is. You see this shiny gold. Being able to carry it back, or actually having to carry it back to your base and hold on to it for a while, and then actually ship it off in a rocket that comes down, and you have to throw it in physically and so on. That was stuff that was at some point in the original Cortex Command, and I, as a designer, thought that was super cool, but I don't know if anyone actually enjoyed that. It was a lot of chores and just tedium, and it made your character actually slower. It made you kind of stuck in the ground because you were actually weighed down by the gold that you were carrying, which was very heavy, which gold is. I thought all this was super cool, but not pretty much anyone agreed with me on that, actually playing it. So this is where we have to think about the lessons that were learned before, and which actually apply now, because 3D is quite different in a lot of ways, and we have a different situation. So maybe some elements can be used, and the benefits are there in terms of actually interesting, fun gameplay, and maybe some can be avoided by learning the lessons of what didn't work before, but maybe also the way that technology is different now in our 3D voxels might make it less tedious or less of a problem. But these are all experiments. But having gold in here, you can imagine like there's like gold in this ground. The ground looks very weird green because it's just interpolating, but we will have these kind of here, paint different textures that are based on actual materials. Right now this is all test stuff. Ooh, is this broken? Have we broken? No. The UI seems like it's not letting me do that. Okay, default, use image. It does not let me click on that. So here we go. I can paint gold on the walls. Great. So I'm painting gold material. Oh, it's probably because the material is gold. So if I set that to none, now I can use image. Okay. Maybe? No. Still not. Okay. Odd. Anywho, it doesn't matter. You can imagine there's gold here in the walls, and I'm digging, and I'm collecting the gold as I'm digging. And there's like veins of gold, so if I go in to the wall, I will be following these like veins of gold, hopefully that. And you see when I'm removing, the gold is actually deep in the voxels in the wall. So that's quite delicious looking, I think. So yeah, we're also thinking a lot about like what's the perfect resolution or the sweet spot in terms of resolution versus responsiveness. and it's not just for the terrain and the environment, which is quite low now, but it is also quite responsive. So we want to optimize for responsiveness, especially when it comes to the terrain. But the weapons and stuff, like this rocket launcher, is a little too low resolution for, I think, what it needs to be. So one step more maybe, because you're holding these things close to your face, you actually care about them. When they break, they become broken, which I just did actually. It flew away in a weird physics, temporary physics way. But the idea is that they would then be copied to the ground of the terrain, and then they can actually be lower resolution, and it would actually visually help you to understand that that's a broken piece of junk that is now in the ground or on the ground, and it's not something you can really pick up and use anymore. So the change in resolution by it being sampled into the terrain is kind of interesting, actually. So enough rambling. This is a 20-minute video now. I'm gonna wrap it up and hope it actually recorded. And this was today's update. So hope you enjoyed it, and please add comments and thoughts and ideas around anything you heard or anything else around the project. Of course, let's try to be on topic at least. We're talking about Cortex Command 3D, nothing else. So we're happy to read those comments and think about them, and maybe even respond to some of them in the future videos we're doing daily, every weekday. We do want to have weekends off. I think that is healthy. So, but on weekdays we're going to be posting these kind of videos at the end of the day, and hope to have a cool dialogue and build in public, essentially. Next one will be about some assets that we're going to be using from the actual trailer of the original Cortex Command from 12 years ago. We have those assets, and they're a good starting point, at least to experiment with. So there's characters, there's weapons, there's dropships even, and so on. The stuff you saw in the trailer, those assets are actually here, and we can actually use them in the Cortex Command 3D, which is pretty magical, I think, as a starting point resource for us to get the look down, at least. So there we are. I will wrap it up. Thanks, guys, and stay tuned. Cheers.